I tell my fleet all the time, you got to play the long game. Yes, you can make more money tomorrow on this load or yesterday on this or that, but what you got to look at a week, a month, a year. You know, right. I mean, I've been, we've been in business 20 years. So I've been through the ups and downs of this market numerous times, and you got to play the long game.
Welcome to the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott, a third-generation transportation professional, immediate past chairman of the Truckload Carriers Association, vice president of the American Trucking Associations, and founder and CEO of Load One. And me, your host, Brandon Baxter. We've spent more than 2 decades in the industry. We've experienced driver shortages, truck shortages, recessions, financial constraints, technological advancements, and legislation. Yeah, we've seen it all. This is trucking news for the drivers and professionals on the ground. This is opinion and insight from the inside. This is the State of the Industry podcast. Welcome to the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott. I'm your host, Brandon Baxter. As you know, this is a monthly series that's dedicated to discussions pertaining to the trucking industry, and it features commentary by the CEO of Load One and recent TCA chairman, John Elliott. John, did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
All right, very good.
Just wrapped up about a week ago. So I'm
excellent.
Now the immediate past chairman.
The immediate past chairman, John Elliott. John, thank you so much for joining me, man. How you doing?
Good. My business card just got a little longer. You have to fold it over to get all that on it, but all good.
We put them on postcards now, right?
Yep, that's fair.
Well, as you just alluded to, that your time as TCA chairman has officially concluded. So let's kind of debrief on that. Like, how did you feel everything went? Let's talk about the year that was, and obviously it just kind of culminated down in, I think it was Kissimmee, Florida, right?
Yep, Kissimmee, Florida, right outside Orlando. We just came off our annual convention. We had great panels. We had like an industry leader panel. You had the leadership of like Heartland Express, Werner Trucking, Dave Jackson from Knight Swift was one of the panelists.
That's a big one going on right there right now, right?
Obviously, recently on the news, as we all know, the acquisition of U.S. Express this week.
That's big.
So, a lot going on. And, it ended with a really great gala banquet finished up the whole shebang with, really great concert and that by Blues Travelers. It was a little exciting because the energy level was really high. And I was a little concerned, Brandon, with the economy, especially the last few weeks.
Right.
It's got a little more scary. The trucking industry is, taking a little bit of a murky turn over the last few months with freight volumes dropping and that. So I wasn't sure what the energy was going to be. And it was still extremely high, extremely positive. I think people are seeing a longer view of this and thinking that this is more of just a short-term storm. Really, if I look at like the lifespan of being an officer, it was like 7 years to become chairman. It feels like that was like a lifetime.
Right.
But then, when you took that seat, that year went by in a blink of an eye. And that, but it was a very interesting year, with the economy going up and down, interest rates, business going from an all-time high to slowing dramatically down. Right. There was just a lot of factors in play, but I came out of it with a really good feeling. I feel as an organization, we really moved forward this year, both internally in the organization and externally. The amount of time we got to spend up on Capitol Hill with our lawmakers and with our policymakers. I met with Robin Hutchinson, the head of the FMCSA. She was down at TCA at our annual conference. We got to sit down with her and introduce her to the Drivers of the Year award winners, and
awesome.
Got some time for her to be able to spend with them and understand their issues and what they loved about driving, what were their challenges out there, and so that she could hear it firsthand from them. But working with FMCSA and DOT on policies and trying to help educate and guide, because a lot of it is you call it lobbying, but a lot of it isn't that you need to lobby so much as these people need perspective. They need to understand the views. They need to understand it's a little bit of education and giving them facts and data to be able to go forward with. And I really think TCA is helping to drive that and do that. Things like truck parking.
Yes.
Pretty excited. We've got that, my fingers crossed, moving forward again through some appropriation. So we're going to see what happens there. But I think that one may get across the finish line here shortly. So, I take a lot of pride because that was a priority under my tenure and and the organization as a whole. We joined, with some other organizations to help fight this independent contractor battle. I mean, this AB5 and independent contractor thing is bad. It's very bad. I mean, most every trucking company I know started with one truck and one driver.
Right.
I mean, that's how my grandfather, I'm a third generation. He came out of the coal mine. He became a driver, got his first truck. And that started now, when I watch my daughter or family members, below me go into the business. That's a fourth generation. And all that started off really the independent contractor and that. And, to turn around and attack that's to me a fundamental basic of the American dream. So, government needs to stay out of that and let that be.
What's the latest with that? If you don't mind me jumping in for a second, John, like what can you share, or do you know what's kind of
that's a back and forth. We're fighting in California. That's gone back and forth. Some other states have bubbled up. I think a lot of them are really waiting to see what happens in California.
Of course,
it's a lot like Rhode Island when they tried to do truck only tolls.
Right.
A lot of 8 or 9 states had plans on the table, waiting to see what happened with the Rhode Island Supreme Court. And in trucking, we won that. The ATA and TCA, we won that fight during my year, and or the accumulation of the win.
Mm-hmm.
And so those other states backed off, and it's the same thing with AB5 or independent contractor status. Department of Labor has gone back and forth. The Biden administration has tried to put some rules back in. We'll see how that plays out.
Right.
I think it's a lot more devastating than they realize, especially in an economy that's incredibly fragile.
Right.
Right now. It is even more so not the time to be messing with things. But again, that's a fundamental building block of the economy that shouldn't be touched. And it's solely for political reasons. You've got that. The other big thing I think we're looking at right now, or looming issue, is emission standards. We have, vehicles are federally regulated, and that's the way it should be. You can't have every individual state come up with their own emission regulations, or how would Ford or Freightliner or Detroit Diesel or Cummins or Caterpillar, anyone, be able to produce a vehicle?
Wouldn't be able to. Wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, you had to comply to 50 different standards.
Yeah.
And that's why we have a federal environmental regulation department, the EPA. The EPA is somehow, and the federal government is ceded power to California and that in CARB. And, California is moving forward with standards and that.
Right.
And, they're not very good rules. And on top of the questionability of the rules is the time frame that they're putting on those rules.
Okay.
So, TCA is a founding member, along with the ATA, the Engine Manufacturing Association, and the Automotive Truck Dealers Association, to the Clean Freight Coalition. And we're going to work together as a unified voice to help educate lawmakers on the situation and the public and understand. I mean, 60 trucks today put out the emissions that one truck did in 1988. So, as an industry,
progress has been made.
We've made huge progress.
Sure.
And we're committed to keep going forward. We're not saying no, but what we're saying is there has to be a realistic time frame. You can't do it in 4 years, 5 years.
Right.
The technology is not there. We would have another time like back in, 2012 or 2013, when we brought DEF in, and some other solutions.
Right.
It was not good for the industry. We had a big pre-buy surge, and then, the new technology came in, and like a lot of new technologies, some did not work at all. I mean, the Cummins had their issues, and different engine manufacturers. Certain technologies did not play out. Even the ones that did eventually stay and work had a lot of problems. They had a lot of bugs to work out. Well, it added a lot of cost to the equipment. It hurt the reliability of the equipment. Terrible resale on that equipment. So it wasn't good for the companies. It wasn't good for owner operators. Yeah, and it wasn't, in the end, it wasn't good for the supply chain because of the unreliability of the equipment. And And then, like you said, you're hurting resale value, you're hurting uptime. If trucks are down, you need more trucks. Supply chain is good. It's just, again, I think the point is, we're behind the idea to continue to improve and continue to help the environment, but we have to do it in a logical time frame. And trucks are, you can't just plug them in tomorrow. There's not a battery solution for this. We're going to have to find some logical bridges, whether it be hydrogen or other solutions to get us across the finish line. But you can't just say we're going to outlaw the combustion engine in 4 years arbitrarily when you don't have a replacement. A lot of people are familiar with NATME. NATME does the certifications in our industry, like your certified safety professionals and things like that. That is actually a wholly owned sister company of TCA, and you're going to see a lot more things come out over this next year as we look to expand certification and training and education for our industry and bring more value to both NATME members and the TCA members. So we're pretty excited about that, among a lot of other things. But again, I think the first step is really education.
Yeah.
Lobbying is a little bit of a push. Ideally, I think if we can educate policymakers and lawmakers and that with good solid facts and have them understand the facts, not just the hype. It's easy to talk about the hype and what's great on the news or what sounds great on a PowerPoint. But when you talk about the realities of it and the real impacts and how it's going to affect drivers or the industry or the whole supply chain and ultimately consumers on that, well, that's what they need to know. And that's what they want to hear. And a lot of times you don't have to lobby or push. They're going to make logical decisions because they have the facts, and a lot of times they just got hit from the other side, let's say an environmental group or things like that, who have one goal, one objective, and don't care about the ramifications at the end of the day. They don't care what happens to supply chain. They don't care what happens to the consumer or what the costs of certain things are. They have a goal. They want their goal. They push for their goal, and that's it. Again, we're not essentially opposed to the goal, but it's got to be a realistic goal. It's got to be a realistic time frame.
It has to make sense.
Something that can be done. We went from a very hot market for the last 2-3 years. The nicest term I could use is a normalization, but I think this is more than a normalization.
Okay.
We've seen a pretty across the industry, talking to people and looking at other companies and carriers, they've seen some pretty dramatic, not only declines in load counts, but even more so than that is the revenue per mile, or the revenue and the rates have just plummeted. And it's not just Expedite. I mean, you're seeing it ocean containers, air freights, air charter. I mean, across the board, freight is just taking a pretty dramatic swing here at the end of the fourth quarter in that. And I wish I had all the answers. I do think part of it is a normalization.
Okay.
I think we're going back to where first quarter was the lowest, second quarter was better, third quarter was best, or the better yet, and then fourth was the best quarter of the year.
Right.
And I think that's what we're starting to see as supply chain kind of smooths out. Inventory from overseas is a little bit more regular now and things like that. People aren't ordering stuff, a year in advance, hoping to get something. And then I think the other big factor is, the stock market and with the feds, continuing to raise interest rates, trying to cull inflation and pull it back. Well, those interest rates are stymieing companies. I mean, they're not. Yeah, it's not good for any business. So I think it's hurting a lot of businesses. I think a lot of businesses are pulling back. A lot of businesses are struggling with, combining inflation costs with the interest rate hikes. And that, I mean, just today we got another quarter point. Possibly the last one. They say maybe one more, this year. But again, I mean, this is the largest swing we've seen, I think, in roughly 15, 16 years, of the Fed. So again, it's a dramatic expense to a lot of carriers. I mean, that moves your borrowing expense dramatically. The carrying costs of carrying, receivables and fuel receivables and your owner operators. I mean, you're paying them every week. You're not getting paid for 30, 60, 90 days sometimes. So the cost of just doing, this, if everyone was doing the same business they were doing the last year, a carrier does, let's say 10 million in sales, their interest carrying costs may be $50,000 more this year. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's real. It's a real number, maybe closer to 100. I mean, it adds up. And, it's direct off the bottom line. It's money that's not spent on buying new equipment or employees or benefits or wages or any of that. It's just the direct mystery money that goes out to pay for interest. The pipeline is still quite a bit out there.
Okay.
Trailers seem to have gotten a little better. You don't have to wait quite as long on trailers.
Okay.
Trucks are still, you want a new truck, and it's 9 months to a year if you can get it. So that's out there. I think, and honestly, you got to be a fleet to really get a spot. Right. Be an owner operator and say, I want to go buy a truck. That's hard. You're not going to get to order one, most likely. You're most likely, if you have any luck, you're going to get one off the lot.
Okay.
And honestly, dealers they don't have much inventory on lots, especially brand new, because if they've got a slot, it's going to one of their fleet customers who's committed. A lot of us place orders, and honestly, we're seeing, we're a decent sized, customer.
Sure.
The big truck manufacturers are my customers. So we have a very strong relationship. I'm going to get probably half of my allocation for trucks that I've ordered and want this year. And that, so, it's challenging. Now that's probably a good thing in one hand, because it's not letting supply overexpand, which would be very detrimental right now.
That makes sense.
Demand situation, because again, a lot of carriers are suffering hard. I think, especially in Expedite, I think one of the biggest struggles that we're seeing, talking to a lot of carriers, and a lot of carriers do a lot of business for us. We're a large broker in the Expedite business.
Right.
A lot of them jumped in or grew over the last 2-3 years when the spot market, when they could live off bid boards and brokers.
Right.
Well, those days are over. When it shifts the other way, those bid boards or brokers that would pay you the high rate, guess what? Now they're the ones at the lowest end of the spectrum.
They've got no place to go.
Supply and demand, they're paying the lowest of everything.
Right.
So, I struggle even sometimes with my fleet, reminding them, hey guys, we have a high percentage of direct shipper freight.
Yeah.
And yes, does it pay as well? Let's say 6 months ago, did it pay as well as crazy spot market rates? No. But when things slow down, that freight's there, and that freight's more steady and dedicated. And that's what, most carriers really don't have a lot of that.
Yeah.
That kind of freight in their mix. Probably only I'll say a handful of the larger ones have the sales force and have the investment into the direct shipper market. So I think, you're going to see, owner operators migrate to some of the larger carriers, as if this downturn holds. But I honestly, my gut, if I was a betting man, says, this is a 90 days more, and we should be moving through this from the expedite industry.
Okay.
Trucking's a lead indicator. I think the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter will be decent in trucking as a whole. Mm-hmm. Expedite tends to move before the general truckload market.
Kind of sets the trend.
Yeah. And I think, companies like ours that have a heavier mix of dedicated or dedicated customers, direct shipper freight, will move before that, because we're not as reliant on the spot market, as other carriers who 90% of their freight runs through that spot market. So again, there's challenges. I tell my fleet all the time, you got to play the long game. Yes. You can make more money tomorrow on this load, or yesterday on this or that, but you got to look at a week, a month, a year. We've been in business 20 years now. So I've been through the ups and downs of this market numerous times, and you got to play the long game. You got to think smart. You got to play the long game, and you got to make sure, as an owner, operator, or driver, you're positioned with a company that has the freight mix to play the long game. One has the financial stability to play the long game, because things get rough, and that you're seeing carriers close. There was just 150 truck carrier the other day in North Carolina. Yeah, good company. I was at a conference. They presented. A week later, surprise, they closed their doors.
Wow.
It's very interesting times. Like I said, interest rates going up only going to exacerbate that problem.
Right.
And it raises the cost again of everything, insurance, everything keeps going up. Overpriced equipment. That they're upside down in loans are now, because the used equipment, with the market slowing down, that'll put you'll see people dumping equipment off. Dealers are not looking for a lot of used equipment right now. It's not moving the way it was. So I think a lot of companies that were not very well planned for the long term and were living off the short term, that somehow thought those rates would stay there forever. And the golden days were going to be a decade, are going to unfortunately suffer really bad if they make it.
And so much of this was, for lack of an argument, predicated on what happened with COVID, correct? That's really where we started to see a lot of this come into play.
Yeah, it definitely it changed the supply demand curve dramatically. It threw the supply chain into chaos. The expedited industry, we do well in chaos, whether it be natural disasters, storms. I didn't think pandemic years ago was really high on my list of possibles, but
I don't know that it was on anyone's bingo card.
Yeah, after this, it used to be we looked at natural disasters, things like Katrina, things like that really moved and affected our market. Pandemic was really not on my list. So I guess if aliens land tomorrow, I'll be like, oh, should have saw that coming. Yes. Nothing really seems completely out of the realm of the expedite world anymore.
Not anymore. I guess we should also, put on that list, keep an eye out for any asteroids that may be heading this way. That's something to be aware of, I guess. Hey, sorry to interrupt your podcast listening. Okay, actually, I'm not sorry. I honestly wanted to interrupt for just a couple moments and talk to you about John Elliott and Load One. Okay, look, John and I have known each other for years. We've worked together in some capacity over that frame of time, but honestly, right now, having the opportunity to host this podcast with him has been fantastic. And what's fantastic for you, the driver, the owner-operator, is an opportunity at Load One. That's right. This is an ad spot for Load One. They're currently recruiting for owner-operators. So if you've got a straight truck, you've got a tractor, you are a team, maybe you've got a sprinter, you want to run expedite, you want to run truckload, get in now. Get in while the getting's good here, because Load One's got great benefits that they offer you. Layover pay, paid moves. They've got a wonderful driver's lounge tailored specifically to the driver, and all you have to do is go to their website. It's load1.com. That's load, the number 1.com, or you can apply directly at Expeditors Online or go to justcdljobs.com. They've got their stuff plastered all over there. You click on the link, you fill out the application, and I promise you, driving with Load One is going to be the best decision that you've ever made. All right, now back to the podcast.
We invested heavy in Bystar Bed and technology. To really try to digitally transform the company and to be the leader in the time critical space. And I think we've, knock on wood, I think we've done it, or we're the leader. Some may argue that, but I'll argue it back. A couple of recent things, our driver app has been a big thing for a couple of years now, and we continue to enhance that. We recently brought out a version for our fleet owners so that they could see the data on their trucks and watch what their fleet was doing all real time, from a phone.
They have to love that.
Yeah, it's I can't imagine trying to take it away from them. It'd be like a child taking a Christmas toy. Enthusiastic would be an understatement.
Awesome.
So that's been a great tool. And again, you're giving people data and you're giving people actionable data to manage their businesses. And really, that's been the goal for us, is to empower our owner operators and our drivers and our fleet owners to manage their businesses more effectively, have real-time data, and for that to be an advantage over our competitors that don't provide data. Or I have a competitor I know who provides like a heat map of freight. Well, here's last month's heat map. Ours is real time. It's live. It's yesterday, it's today. You sort it, dice it, slice it. What happened last month is not really relevant to me, and it shouldn't be to anyone in this industry at this point in the world and technology.
But if you got data to go off of, if you've got some sort of numbers that can help you,
you can manage. I think good or bad. And you know what? Sometimes managing through a storm, that data is even more important. We just launched earlier this week our own proprietary load board.
Really?
That, with some. So far the reviews have been three thumbs up, from our carriers with some of the features and the accessibility and the ease of use and that. And again, our goal is to be able to take care of our customers, provide coverage faster. If we're not able to do it, I mean, we have one of the two largest expedite fleets in the country at this point.
Right.
And if we're not able to handle it in-house, we need to protect that freight and cover it for our customer,
Sure.
So that way it's always there for our fleet. I mean, our fleet is always coming. We always move. Some companies optimize their freight,
right,
and they will choose whether to put it on their truck or to broker it. What is the most advantageous for the carrier?
Sure.
We do not. That our freight goes to the fleet first.
Yeah.
And it gets outsourced second. We do that to protect our fleet. Our fleet should be first. They've got our name on the side of the vehicles and their livelihood, and that should be directly tied to ours. Unlike some carriers who, again, I'm not, everyone.
No, but I understand. I mean, it's true. It exists.
Their own business model. If they optimizing is more profitable for them,
sure,
I can understand that from a business sense. I just choosing that's not the route Load One will go.
We got truck show season right upon us. I mean, as at this time that we're recording next week, we're going to be in Louisville, Kentucky for the Mid-America Trucking Show. Talk a little bit about what you're looking forward to this year.
Truck shows. Just how can you not look forward to those? A lot of history at those things, but
ain't that the truth?
Yeah, so many. But we're headed to Mid-America this year. We'll have a big old straight truck in our booth. We have the same spot we traditionally have. So if anyone in the industry is down there, you probably know where we're at in the corner.
Know where to find you.
And that I can't remember what wing that is. I think it's the West Wing.
I believe so.
Is where we're all at. Love to have everyone stop by the booth, take a look. We're going to have some of our technology on display, so drivers or owner operators can see like what that app looks like and what that we can talk about it all day and
excellent
that. But when you see it and that, and we've got a giant 50-inch iPhone, simulator or whatever,
right,
so that you can actually see it firsthand. It's pretty amazing stuff. We'll have a lot of people there, operations people too, not just recruiters.
Right.
Recruiters are great, but I think it's always good to talk. But I think it's
I know a few
to talk to operations people and people
right,
who do one-on-one to really understand it. And one thing about our booth, it's always got a lot of our drivers and owners there.
Yes,
which is great. They like to see each other in that. And I tell anyone if they're looking to come on board with us, I'm happy to point them out to them and say, hey, why don't you go ask them your questions?
Absolutely.
Forget a recruiter, forget operations. Go ask another driver.
Yeah,
they're gonna give it to you from their view. They do it for a living, and they'll have the best perspective of it all. And that's what you find. You find our drivers are over by the giant iPhone, showing it off and showing it how it works.
That's
cool.
I mean,
they also like to brag. Sometimes they're like, we don't want more trucks because they think that's going to be bad.
Right.
They always have that fear, but it's not exactly how it works. But more trucks lets us go after more customers, and that gives more freight diversity, and that and the more loads, the more trucks you have, that's more combinations, that reduces empty miles.
Yep.
There's a lot of pluses for it. So we're excited about that. And then from there, we move on to the big old expo of them all, the Expedite Expo.
The big old expo. I've heard of that one a few times. Yeah.
Yes. In beautiful Fort Wayne, Indiana. Yes.
Well, tell everybody what is so special about it this year, John?
This year, we're having the driver's barbecue on the front end, sponsored by Load One. I don't have that good
brought to you by
Samuel
Load
Jackson
One
voice or something to be like, to have that cool deep voice with it. But we're happy to sponsor that this year. It's supposed to be. We're looking to make it a bigger event, have more drivers there, more activities, make it a lot more fun. Really nice way to kick off the event and everything, because it seems like more people are there at the beginning, and by the end of it, a lot of times people got to go, especially if they're loads or stopping in. So I think
why not kick it off big, right?
Exactly. Go big or go home. My first Expedite Expo was in Woodhaven, Michigan, in the parking lot.
Oh yeah,
Detroit truck stop.
That's right, going way back.
We sponsored Joey Holiday as we entered the expedite industry.
I remember Joey Holiday.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think that guy's still around, but I mean, Joey's got to be getting up there. I know I am.
Yeah. So, well, aren't we all? Time stops for no one, my friend.
Exactly. So we're looking forward to it. I'm also, last couple of years I spoke on an industry panel, so I'll be doing that again this year down at the expo, and so looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing everybody. And
absolutely.
And knock on wood, I mean, I guess our recruiting phones and that have been really pretty busy.
Good.
And that, so I think hopefully we'll make a lot more new friends when we're down there.
I can dig it. That's part of why I've always enjoyed being there. I mean, again, you mentioned it at the top of our episode here. Just the ROI on simple networking is huge. So, having the opportunity to get all of us together, whether it's Matt's, whether it's the Expedite Expo, and getting an opportunity to just kind of, chew the fat is always a good thing for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the Expedite Expo is really, being so focused on Expedite.
Of course.
The relations you build and the interactions and things there over the years just been really great.
I've said it before, this is such a close-knit industry. Everybody knows everybody. We've been around.
And a high percentage of us work together.
Yeah.
I call it the frenemies. Nobody wants to have to use your competition, but that's the realistic part of how our industry is, based and everything. So
couldn't agree more.
Being able to get everyone together and see each other and, talk and sometimes grab a beer or something. You can get a lot done.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So for those watching and listening, we can't wait to see you at the expo. But before that, we do hope that we'll be able to, press the flesh down there in Louisville here starting next week. John, anything else you'd like to add to our conversation before we wrap it up this time around?
No, not really. I would say, stay safe, everyone out there. Like I said, I know it's a little bit of a challenging time for a lot of people, but it's not just Expedite. It's all across the industry.
Yeah.
I do believe it's a 60, 90 day kind of problem. It is not the end of the world, and freight is still going to move.
Right.
Truck tonnage is still going to increase. The economy is going to come back, and that. So you just got to be a little patient, and that don't make rash decisions, and that play the long game. And I think you'll be just fine.
There you have it, everybody. Words of wisdom from the man himself. So, John, thank you once again for this episode.
Thank you, Brandon.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for joining us for the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott. I have been your host, Brandon Baxter. Join us again next time as John and I continue our discussions, all topics pertaining to transportation. And don't forget to check out expeditersonline.com and justcdljobs.com for access to over 150 carriers who are actively hiring, and that includes Load One. Until next time. This has been the State of the Industry podcast with John Elliott. For more information on Load One and how to apply for one of their posted job opportunities, go to load1.com. That's load1.com. And as always, be sure to check out our show notes for more information regarding Load One, Expeditors Online, justcdljobs.com, and any other tidbits that were mentioned during our show. Until next time.